So I've just recently done a will it run video for this bike, got the thing started and took it on a test ride. And towards the end of the video, I was a little bit disappointed to find that one of the forks had leaked. Now this is a budget build and I didn't have in the budget to actually get the forks re-chromed. So to do that would be a couple of $100 and it wasn't in the budget. I think it's a couple of $100 per side, like each fork. So to do that, and I knew there was pitting and I've cleaned the pitting up as much as I could. And I put new seals in the actual forks, but it wasn't enough and they did leak. I had a heap of comments come through and a few of the guys have come up with a solution. It's something that I didn't know about and it's something that I'm gonna try and see if it works and share the process with you. What it is, it's using an epoxy, a glue. I'll leave a link to this as well as the other one, which is a Loctite. So an actual Loctite that you use on your threads to stop bolts from coming undone. I'll leave a link to both of these in the description for you to go and grab the same stuff that I'm going to use to try this. I'm probably just going to use the epoxy. I think that'll work quite well. How I'm going to do this is I'm basically going to clean up the area, clean up the pitting, probably brush it out with some sort of acetone or something that can really get rid of that, like degrease that, the oil that's been baked in there, and then put this in and let it dry and then sand it back with like a 1000 or 2000 grit sandpaper and just get it smooth as possible. I'm not too concerned on how it looks because it's going to have those rubber gaiters covering the whole entire area. So it doesn't matter if you can see the epoxy glue, sort of exposed, I guess. It's going to have this clear little bit of whatever over the top. I really don't care about that. I'm just trying to keep the budget down on this, and this was fantastic. So for all you guys who left me that comment, thank you so much. Let's give it a go and let's see if it works. So I want to explain something that's just recently happened. In the process of me taking the front forks off, I scratched the top triple clamp and also the bottom triple clamp because I painted it with a spray can. A spray can isn't exactly that durable. Even though you do the undercoat and you do heaps of coats to try and make it thick, it's still going to scratch, unfortunately. It's not as durable as powder coating. So one thing that I would have loved to do is powder coat the things that I've fabricated on this bike. To save cost, I've fabricated things that I probably wouldn't have ordinarily needed to. I could have just purchased them, but obviously it cost me nothing to fabricate it. It's only my time. So I just got off the phone with my powder coater. I had a chat with him, and I've got a set of skills that I can help him with some stuff. So that's what I'm going to do. And in return, he's actually going to powder coat all of those little bits and pieces which I've taken off. So for instance, the top and bottom triple clamp, the top electrics tray, the bottom one which holds the regulator rectifier, the mudguard, the luggage rack that sits on the back. So all those little things which I would have really liked to powder coat, now I can powder coat, and all it's going to cost me is a bit of time. If you're in the position where you're on a budget, you can't really get something done, but you do have a set of skills, and you've got a friend who's an electrician and you hate the wiring and you want to get them to do it, or you've got a friend of a friend who's an electrician and you know they need something done and you know that you have the skills to do that, have a bit of a think about it, because it could potentially be a free thing that you do to your bike, and therefore you can spend that money that you're going to spend on that on something else. It's just something that I thought of, something that's happening with this build, so I thought I'd share it because it might help you in the process of building your bike. Anyway, let's get back to those forks. With these actual Allen head bolts that hold this all together, they can get ridiculously tight. So last night what I did was I got some WD-40 and I soaked it, and that should help it a little bit, hopefully. Let's give it a go and see if we can get it out. Basically just got one of the forks pretty much clamped into the super jaws here, this clamp system. It's basically operated by a foot. I've mentioned it many times in the channel. This thing here has become so handy. In fact, I've had emails and stuff because I mentioned it so many times on the channel. People have sent me emails and photos on Instagram and things that they've done with this thing, and they're just like so thankful that I've recommended it because it's been so useful for them as well. I'll leave a link in my description for this thing if you want to get yourself one, but yeah, they are super handy. Wow, that was way easier than the first ones I did. Definitely recommend soaking overnight in WD-40. I don't know if you can see all that crusty stuff in there, but that's been there for a while, which means it wasn't these forks that I did the seals in, it was the other set. Now I do remember mentioning that I was going to try and avoid doing it if I can to try and save costs, but that's one of the things that you probably should do with a set of forks that haven't been used for a very, very long time, and then having all the pitting and stuff on them definitely hasn't helped. So let's get these guys apart and get that actual seal out. I've got a set of circlip removers here. You can remove the circlips without them. They are a little bit of a pain to get in and out without it, but these things are really inexpensive and worth having in your toolkit, so definitely get yourself some. I'll leave a link in the description if you haven't got a set. Unfortunately on this side, the circlip is pretty much broken on one side, so I can't even get a handle on it, so I'm going to have to pull it out manually. So with all the actual components that have come out of the forks, I've pretty much degreased all of them, and I'm going to put a bit of oil on them to stop them from flash rusting, some new oil, so that's something that I've done. And also with the actual fork tubes, I'll show you where the pitting is. So it's pretty much from about here all the way up to, I guess, around here, so it's that section. And you can see all the little black dots. It's kind of going to be hard to see in the camera, but one there, all these little tiny dots. This one isn't as bad as the other one. It's more so just on one side than the back side. The back side's not too bad, but it's still got, you know, a few. So I'll show you the other one. It's way worse. So this is the problem area right here. So the fork seal sits around here, and it just keeps going through this, which is obviously letting the oil out. That's the worst. There's also some smaller sections which are pitted all the way up here. You can feel it as you're running this over. You can see that, how bad it actually is. So what I'm going to do is sand all this down with some 1500 sandpaper, and then once I've sanded the whole entire area from here to here on both forks, then I'll get the wire wheel, put it on the drill, and put some degreaser on that and really clean this area up, because this is where I want the glue to be, around here. I may even run a skim of glue over here as well, and then once that glue pretty much sets, I'm going to run some 1500 and then 2000 sandpaper over the entire area here, which will pretty much smooth it right off, I'm hoping. This is a trial thing, I've never done this before. The ultimate way of fixing this, if you're going to not be on a budget and you want to build your bike and you want it to last a long time, obviously get them re-chromed. That's the best way to do it, to fix this, and it'll last, you know, equally as long, probably another 40 years, but we don't have that in the budget for this build. So this is going to be the quick fix. Hey, it might last a long time, you never know. That glue's pretty hardcore. The epoxy stuff that I'm going to be using is... So this is the glue that I'll be using. It's a Gorilla epoxy. It sets in 5 minutes. I'm not sure if that's work time or if that's just touch dry, but anyway, I'll leave it a bit longer than 5 minutes before I start sanding it. So it should work. I'm assuming this stuff's pretty damn strong. I've used it on other things as well and I've never had an issue, so let's give this a go. If you're interested in rebuilding your forks on your CX500, I've done a complete video on this whole process and replacing the actual fork seals. I'll leave a link to that video in the description below for you to go and check out. late last night, I pretty much spent a bit of time sanding these down. As you saw, I put a skim of glue over the whole entire area and then sanded it back with, I actually started with 800 and then went 1500 and then 2000 sandpaper. But there was just a few little areas which I wanted to, you know, just readdress, which is the big one here, which I feel like it had a little bit of a gouge out of it. So I wanted to redo it, which I did. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to basically just re-sand it, but I'm going to take off the bulk of it. I won't use the razor blade this time. I might see if I can get that down without using the razor blade, and then you know, just smooth it off perfectly. So, and it really does feel a hell of a lot better than what it was. Like all these little tiny voids, I think they're pretty much covered because it does feel a lot better. So I can't put these back together. I don't have the seals yet. I'm waiting for them to turn up. But the final result of the actual glue, I just want to show you. I'll do that same test that I did before and just use the weight of this and run it over the top to see if you see any friction. If it did, it'll sort of grab and pull like this, but you know, it's just gliding perfectly. When you run your finger over it, you can ever so slightly feel something different, like there's a, you know, a little bit of drag difference, but as long as that glue can hold up, this is definitely going to work as far as I'm concerned. It'll stop the oil from escaping, and it's the same thing with this one. All those little tiny pitting spots aren't grabbing anymore, and when you run your hand over it or finger over it, you can feel that there's just, it's super smooth. So it's a win for now until we do the test of actually putting them together and running some oil through them. So thanks for watching, have an amazing day, and I'll chat with you in the next video.